Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another review discussion. I am Alex O'Neill, your host this time, I guess, and joining me, special guest, very excited to have outside the staff opinion here, Moises Tavares. He's coming in swinging.
Hello.
That's your Smash Brothers, like, when you arrive. It's Moises Tavares comes in swinging.
Yeah, is it just because me and Spider-Man are both from New York? Is that it?
I
Yeah.
was thinking more of like a baseball swing, so like I feel like
Okay, gotcha.
and why I was
gotcha.
thinking that, no particular reason. I don't know. I just feel like he come in swinging.
Yeah.
Hi,
I
Moises.
actually hate baseball.
Okay, well, see, like it's irony.
Yeah.
In the zombie apocalypse now, your character would use a baseball bat, and then there would be a side quest where you learn about their backstory. And I actually hate baseball, but
yeah, my father tried to get me into it all those
I
years.
used this bat to cave in his zombie head. Actually, he wasn't a zombie. We've written a beautiful narrative. I feel like that is like Moises to a T. No one even needs to know what other stuff you've done. That's just
I don't do shit. It doesn't matter.
That's not true.
I forgot. Can I curse here?
Yeah, you can.
I forgot.
You're
okay.
welcome to. We probably shouldn't for the YouTube video aspect of it, but we can always censor it later, so I'm not worried about it.
That's very fair.
But hi, Moises. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Review Discussions. We haven't done one of these in a while, but we're doing a few kind of back-to-back here. We're talking about Metroid Dread. For folks who are not familiar with you, Moises, you've been kind of grinding lately, doing some cool stuff. So where might people have heard of you or seen your stuff?
People might have heard me in. I was recently on Waypoint Radio. Highlight of my life, right there.
Yeah, dude.
Just gonna be honest about it.
I get it.
You might have caught me there talking about either Deathloop or Life is Strange. You might have also seen me on Waypoint. I reviewed a game over there called Untitled. But generally, I am a freelancer. You might have also seen me in Fanbyte recently, talking about Far Cry 6 and my dad. People really didn't get the point of that article, and I love it. But yeah, you and at Paste, where I interned earlier this year, when I rejoined games media after a long hiatus.
Yeah, nice little break.
Yeah.
And you've been on IP stuff before in the
I have been on IP stuff,
era,
yeah.
so I feel like it's worthy of like noting kind of like all the new stuff that you've done. It's been a while for any of our stuff. You've probably been on like maybe a stream would be the most recent thing, but
yeah.
Even still, I didn't get to chat to you then, and now we get to talk about Metroid Dread. We got to start here with kind of at the top. Moises, what Metroid experience do you have?
I have almost no Metroid experience, which is very funny to me because my favorite game is a goddamn Metroidvania.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hollow Knight.
Yeah,
and
Hollow Knight.
I'm so excited now that you've played Dread, because Dread obviously, there's definitely influence from Hollow Knight, another game that I am also a very large fan of. And it's cool to see it kind of come full circle, because I adored Hollow Knight for its Metroidness, and now you kind of get to dip your toe into the franchise that inspired it.
Yeah. But yeah, Metroid Dread is the only Metroid game that I have ever finished. I have dipped my toes into the original Metroid. I've dipped my toes into Super Metroid. I have played like half an hour of Metroid Prime 3 at my friend's house when I used to visit him, mostly to play his video games.
Start from the beginning. That's what they always say.
Yeah, I'd love to, except Nintendo doesn't want to put out the damn remastered trilogy that we all know that they have to make at some point, and that they already did for the Wii U, right? That's
kind
where they put out the...
But that still had the motion controls, so though. There's still a little bit more work they would have to do.
Yeah. So and I think that's about it. I've never played Zero Mission or Fusion
or Samus Returns, the most recent one. Yeah.
Or Samus Returns, because I did not have a DS at the time. I do have a DS now, and after playing Dread, I do kind of feel like going back to Samus Returns. But also, like, I've just been thinking about going back to the very beginning of Metroid, anyways, since it's like I think Metroid and Super Metroid at least are on the Switch Online, like the NES Online stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm probably gonna go back and start with those. But yes, basically, Metroid Dread is the only Metroid I've actually
A
finished.
newborn babe to the series.
Yes, my the only Metroidvania I have ever stuck with is literally
Hollow
Hollow
Knight.
Knight. Like
That's really, I didn't know
it's the
that.
one and only one that I think I've
And it's
played
like
and beaten until this.
by far like the longest Metroidvania ever made in my book.
Oh yeah, I also
It's so
have
funny.
like
Yeah.
I think across my Xbox and my Switch, where I have like varying degrees of files, I probably have like over 100 hours in Hollow Knight.
Yeah, like I think my
Uh,
core, like my first playthrough of Hollow Knight where I did everything was like 104 hours.
Jesus, yeah, I don't even think mine was. I think mine was like 55
I just
hours.
like
My
hung
first
out
one.
everywhere.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
ready, and I died a lot on the book.
They were hard bosses. Some of them a little harder than Metroid Dread bosses. Some of them not. I was not expecting the difficulty of the Metroid Dread bosses. Um, they're very good bosses, and we can get into that when that is appropriate. But yeah, that's kind of my
It's
history with
it's
Metroid.
curious. I'm surprised you. Do you think after playing this you would play more Metroidvanias?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I think when I played Hollow Knight, I really specifically fell in love with, I guess, its flourishes that it put on like the Metroidvania, because I think frankly a lot of what turned me off to Metroid games earlier was that, and this is partially technology and it's also partially like style, but like they just kind of seemed like ugly games to me.
Oh, okay.
I didn't really appreciate the art. And the art in Hollow Knight is what really drew me in. And then it was also a Souls kind of game. Um, and then it just became that evolved into the best game ever.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think when I finished that game, I was looking for more Metroidvanias like it, and I don't really think that I've found many. I know a lot of people have been telling me to play like Ender Lilies this year, which kind of, I guess, has like those stylish flourishes, but I haven't like made the time for it. Um, and then I've just never played a Castlevania game, so I don't know
You
about
should
that.
you should find a way to play Shadow Complex. Cuz
I
don't
should.
don't
I
buy it
really
because the
should.
guy that wrote it is a piece of shit. But find a way
Oh, is
to
he really?
yeah. Orson Scott Card. It's one of the
Oh, is it him?
it's like
Oh,
one of the
wow.
writer pieces of shit out there.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe don't buy it, but find a way to play it. It's very good. Like Metroid Dread does remind me a lot of Shadow Complex because it does a lot of the same kind of 3D tricks. But Shadow
Yeah.
Complex is just way older and way less refined. But it's a good Metroidvania. It's very
Yeah,
fun.
I remember being very interested in Shadow, and I feel like Metroidvania was like obviously a known term around then, but I don't think people threw it around as often,
Not as much
because I
penetration.
remember like
Yeah.
reading reviews and seeing like, I don't know, like probably the review on fucking X Play at the time when
Yeah.
Shadow Complex came out, and nobody called it a Metroidvania. And now that you're like invoking it in the same conversation, I'm remembering the gameplay and I'm just like, no, of course that's a fucking
Yeah,
Metroidvania.
back then I just heard a lot of Super Metroid comparisons, but I think Metroidvania
Yeah,
maybe kind of
yeah.
coined more with like the indie rise of Metroidvanias.
Yeah,
Uh,
that seems about right.
from my experience, I've played every Metroid game multiple times. I actually replayed all of them this year as well. Out of excitement, respect. One of my, I would say like favorite, less than popular franchises. Like this is like I always kind of surprise myself at how little I get to talk about Metroid, but I realize it's just because a lot of people have not played Metroid games. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, yeah, it's the world's
it's
most beloved unpopular
yeah,
series.
but it is coming to light like how like few people I know have like played some of the Metroid games that I know,
Yeah.
and it's
Has
surprising.
anybody at IP really played it?
Dread, a couple people have played Dread. And
how about like the Metroid series at large?
everyone has at least one or two. Like Quinn's played like Super Metro or Metroid Fusion because it was on GBA. Scott's I think played all of them. Mike's played some of them, and Jarrett's played at least one. At least
now Jarrett's too cool for Metroid.
He's not too cool for Super Metroid, I guess, but I think I don't know. Maybe he hasn't. I bet I'll talk to him like tomorrow and be like, I've never played that game. I'll be heartbroken, absolutely betrayed like nobody's business. But yeah, I replayed them all this year. The one I've played the least is probably Other M for sure. But
oh my god, I always forget Other M.
That's a game. There's a power up from Other M in this game, which I appreciate the respect.
What's the power up?
The diffusion beam, which is the one that you get from beating Craig. Although it's used way better in this game than it was in Other M. In Other M, it was basically like just a throwaway power up. Like, your explosions is bigger now. But yeah, so I've
Other M sounds like a mess of a game. By the way,
it is absolutely.
I've been hearing a lot about it in this last week, while people have been talking about the similarities and the differences, obviously, between this and Dread, and like it. I've heard a lot about specifically how the commanding officer would not let Samus use like the heat resistant.
Yeah, the various suit. There's a moment in the game like everyone knows it and I know exactly what you're talking about. And I replayed it recently and I forgot it. It's like you have to go through like multiple sections of this flame area that the commanding officer tells you to go, and he also tells you that only he can allow you to use certain power-ups. That's how you get just about every power-up in the game, except for the diffusion beam, which is extremely funny. Like the one new thing that they add, and it's just completely thrown away. And then all this is kind of at the end. Samus literally activates like 4 power-ups at the same time because she's like, I'm not going to take your orders anymore. And it's like, it's just, so you have to go through many heat rooms and take a lot of damage. And like the thing is, that game is structured in a way it's so linear that if you go into a hot room, it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here yet. And so a lot of people get hung up there because they go there and they think I have to wait until I get the Various suit. But no, you just have to go through 2 hot rooms, and eventually Adam's like, it's hot in there. You should have the Various.
That is incredibly stupid. Oh my god.
And, I do believe that there are kernels of good ideas in that game, especially like mechanically, like how it plays.
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
But it is just like it is like such stark contrast to Dread, where like and Dread is a great example of, I think execution is so important to an actual game, and they're perfectly stark comparisons of like poor execution. Good ideas maybe executed poorly, and then good ideas executed as well, if not better. Like the execution makes the idea even better than just the idea alone. So yeah, I've played. I've got a lot of Metroid experience. I would say walking out of this one, in my humble opinion, as I shouldn't have to say, but preface this whole podcast, this is definitely the best 2D Metroid in my opinion.
Okay.
I know some people and I had a conversation with Nabish.
Some people are going to show up with pitchforks.
I don't care for that. Some people are going to disagree. It's fine, whatever. Either to each your own. Obviously, you can't account for taste. But also, the more opinions, the merrier. I'm not one of the people that thinks otherwise. Nabish and I talked about this recently. That'll be another like little show, just me kind of gushing about some of the older Metroid games and Metroid as a whole. But it's kind of what we were talking about before we started recording Moises. Super Metroid is just an old game. It's old. It feels old. Takes like a second and a half to jump after you hit the button in that game. Doesn't make sense. It's just an old game. It's fine. That's fine. It's okay.
By the way, I hate the space jump in this game.
The space jump is an acquired taste. I understand. I want you to know the first game, because I beat Super Metroid as a kid. The first game where I like years later played was Metroid Fusion, and when I got the space jump, I literally like couldn't get out of that room because I didn't know how it worked. And the game still doesn't tell you how the space jump works. To this day, like, they've never said, it's just, you could jump multiple times in the air. It's like, okay, I have an idea of what that means, but it's like, no, there's a rhythm to it. There's like a delay. You have to wait to come down, then you go back up. And the game never tells you that.
Is.
But again, like, second hat, anyone who's played Metroid before coming into this game wouldn't even think about it. Just like the shootable walls and stuff, like, it is such a core to the franchise that it's just inherent at this point.
Yeah, which that stuff tripped me up a lot in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your final count was in the game. I think I wrapped up about. I did not 100% complete it. I think I got somewhere in like the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrapped up at about 12 hours with Dread. And a lot of that was because at various places I just had to like shoot walls that I did not know I had to shoot.
Yeah.
Which like that stuff is not really in like Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
Which is my only significant experience in the genre. So it was interesting, like I've seen speedruns because I'm a huge like GDQ person. I have a GDQ face mask that I just go everywhere.
On brand, I love it.
Yeah, I love GDQ. I love speedruns. I put them on like while I go to sleep, honestly. And Metroid is a very obviously popular like title to speedrun. And so I know that like it's part of the lineage, but it is interesting how like it almost seems like part of the lineage of mostly just the actual franchise than it is the genre as a whole. And I wonder if that's just like because of the like the portmanteau. Like I wonder if that's like the Castlevania part of it, like overwhelming Metroid, or like right, like that was kind of snuffed out in favor of, I guess, more like open-ended, like labyrinthine like design.
Yeah.
Because yeah, they like, because I'm not going to say that Hollow Knight doesn't have kind of, but it's mostly reserved for like secrets. Like if you were finding grubs, you know, there was a crack in a ceiling that you would barely see, and then you could hit it. But yeah, it was very tricky, like going into this game sort of knowing the language of it, but not so explicitly that like it was second nature to me.
Yeah.
And so and I think this happens literally because I restarted the game earlier today to familiarize myself like the beginning and to try a sequence break. And so I made it up to Kataris today. And I think maybe right at the beginning of Kataris, if I'm right, like there's a series of walls to your left that you have to blow up. Yeah. Did not fucking know that. I was
like, to give you an idea of like how incredible, like, because I totally understand, and one of the other things I'll say in a second about Super Metroid is it's very similar to a much worse extent. Like when I got to Cataris and did that, like you come in, there's a door to the right, and then a thing to the left. I immediately went left, broke the wall, and went through. Like, didn't think about it. Like it is programmed into me. I just was like, okay, and it's like Metroid does that a lot in elevator rooms. Like elevator rooms are where you should be shooting both sides of the wall the most, probably. Like, and I just know that. It's just in my blood. So like, but I get it. And Super Metroid, and the second reason, other than like feels weird, it's an older game feel wise, is like if you think like the invisible wall stuff in this game is bad, like that game is way more obtuse. Like there is early on in the game, one of the things is there are pillars in the ground that will only come up. Well, this is also Metroid Fusion. There are pillars in the ground that will only come up when you morph ball bomb on them, and sometimes they're like not in a corner or anything. They're just kind of halfway in the room. You have to bomb across the floor randomly, and eventually a pillar will come up. And now you can reach a jump to go up somewhere. You know, there's no ledge grabbing and like climbing into morph ball, so like a lot of options mobility wise are not there. So especially like coming from this game to that, it would probably feel really weird just because you can't squeeze into tight spaces as easily. So yeah, I totally understand, and I think like to the game's credit, it does put enemies in front of walls that you should shoot a lot. It does tell you right at the beginning of the game, like, they're invisible as you need to be shooting them. And in this game versus previous ones, you can reveal what a block is to be destroyed by shooting with a missile. In most Metroid games before, you'd have to be a power bomb. That's kind of like or a morph ball bomb. That's like your reveal stick, basically, of like,
Okay.
let me morph ball bomb everywhere, every single corner in this to figure out what it is. Now you just shoot it with a missile, like from range, and be like, oh, I need to bomb that or something.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of curious what you might have thought about how it not even how it laid things out, but how it sort of introduced like the language of Metroid. Like you know to instinctually go to the wall rather than the door. Yeah, I wondered if you felt like the game sort of communicated that better than previous games did.
It's definitely better than previous games,
Okay.
but it is still a thing that is kind of specific to this franchise. And it's funny because like Metroid Prime 1 and all the Prime games, they have a thing where there's a scan visor where you can scan everything. And in that game, the way they do the blocks that are like, this is a bomb block or a power bomb block or a screw attack block, essentially you scan a thing and it's like, this is made of bendesium, and bendesium can be destroyed by power bombs or morph ball bombs, and then this is made of densium that can be destroyed by super missiles, and this is made of brimstone that can be destroyed by missiles. So like, it translated them to words, and that's why, like, to this day, and I've said this a lot recently, but like, if you were going to jump into a Metroid game, like just play one as your first one, you've never played one, I would say Dread now, but outside of that, I would say Metroid Prime 1, just the first one. That's a perfect game, so play it.
I just gotta get that GameCube.
Yeah, hook up the GameCube.
Yep.
So I'm curious, like, expectation wise, hearing that it kind of clears up my thing. So you said you weren't really expecting the bosses to be tough. I mean, bosses have been a super big part of Metroid, and it's cool to see how far they've come in the 2D space, for sure. How did it feel? Like did it? You didn't have an expectation, but did it like surprise you? Did it kind of frequently surpass those expectations?
It did. It cuz yeah, I mentioned I've watched a lot of Super like Metroid speedruns and stuff. I know that like bosses are part of the lineage, but I also really heavily associate the series with just like two bosses really, which is
Sure, Kraid Ridley.
yeah, just Ridley and Mother Brain. Like that's
Oh, and
about
Mother
it.
Brain. Yeah, that's true. I think it Kraid as well.
Yeah.
A lot of times.
I see I got up to Kraid and I was like, who the fuck is this?
Who is this other dragon?
Yeah, and then I found out by seeing people tweet about it throughout like the launch weekend that like Kraid is like a pretty significant boss character came back for this game. And also nobody knows why he's chained up on ZDR, but you know, it's whatever. We're not going to get into that part of it.
My feeling was like every Metroid or Super Metroid boss, even in like Fusion boss, has now at this point been remade in one of the 3D games, and Kraid was the only one that hadn't.
Yeah.
So I'm glad he finally got his due.
Yeah. But yeah, I mostly associate the series with like those two bosses, and so I didn't even know Kraid. I didn't even know that there would be as many boss fights as there were actually going to be in this game, because there are a lot. There's like a surprising amount. It's like I don't know if this game, and you can clarify here. I don't know if this game has like the most bosses of any of the Metroid games, or at least like is getting up there, because it felt like a lot of bosses, like
I'd
down
say
to the Chozo warriors.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably average. It's probably kind of consistent with like, especially I think thinking about the Prime games, like they similarly did a good job of like they're the big bosses and then a lot of mini bosses, like the Chozo warriors, and then both the staff wielding and then the gunner guys, kind of fill that in, and then you know there's like one kind of lukewarm boss in this game, and that's like the underwater guy. You know,
I like him.
He's
gets
cool.
a
It's
bad rap.
cool design though, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. It's just like this kind of like an anti. You just kind of jump a couple times, grapple over to the side, and then shoot him.
Great for me. It was the easiest boss fight in the middle of a game that I was really, in a good way, struggling with.
Yeah, it is cool because like seeing it in this game, I was like surprised how well they've done it. It is a thing that, because all the other 2D Metroid games are so not cinematic, and this game is, like, they really do stand out. And then kind of thinking back, it's like, yeah, the bosses are really the centerpiece of a lot of these games, because like in the first and third Metroid, you like the thing is you have to beat the bosses in order to get to Mother Brain. So the kind of structure of the game is built around it. And then in Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3, they do such a great job of like each area, each region has like a big boss at the end. But there are these guardians around that'll either have powers that you're getting, or are sub-bosses, or interesting characters. Like Metroid Prime 3 has like these encounters you have with the other space bounty hunters that are really great. In addition to these big end of chapter bosses that would feel like the Ridley role. So yeah, like this game finally makes those kind of 2D boss fights really cinematic. And I'd say like Samus Returns, Mercury Steam's other game, before this, has that to it, but it is like, it's astounding how far a leap in quality from Samus Returns to Dread. Like,
yeah,
there is a lot of overusing the counter in Samus Returns and kind of really depending on it, or needing to wait for it, when really they get away from that. And it's kind of like a way to cinematically end a boss fight in this game. And just the movement in Samus Returns is obviously just not on the same level and whatnot. Yeah, it is a humongous leap in quality, and just they wanted this game to be flashy, but they synergize your agency with the flashiness, like you being able to shoot in those cutscenes. I really think just
love it.
Goes so far. Like truly, I don't know any other video game that's done that. And it's like, there are a couple games I can think of where, like, you know, I think of, hey, have you played Kingdom Hearts 2? I don't know if I'm about to.
I've played Kingdom Hearts 2. It's been a long.
But like the scene at the end where you're like destroying the lasers when they're coming in, and you're mashing both the buttons, like, and it's like, oh shit, I'm like doing this. It's so rarely utilized, and it should be so more. And this game like incorporates it in a way that it kind of never gets old, and I really appreciate that.
I 100,000% agree on the cinematic stuff in the fights, because it's great.
With us talking about it too, you were having some trouble in the final boss. I threw you one tip that changed it.
Yeah.
Really.
Yep. Literally the second that you told me that, I was like, all right, maybe that's all I need to do. And I had been struggling with him like a little bit. I was getting him close enough, but like that final phase was screwing me up. And the second that I did it, I was just like, I broke the fight. Like, I did it.
It truly is like, it's such a crippling kind of move that he does, and it's like, oh yeah, I have a power bomb. Like, I gotta try this out.
I genuinely thought that I just had to like power through it.
Me
like
too.
It was like a I don't know, like fighting Sans in Undertale or some shit.
It feels so overwhelming. Like so many things happening on screen at once. The first time I beat him, that I did not know how to power bomb that guy, and when I beat it the second time, that is when I was like, you use almost every move in this fight, so let me just try this. And
also, a neat thing that I like picked up on actually playing it today, when you first, because it goes without saying that there will probably be spoilers in this review discussion. But when you fight Ravensbeak in the beginning, and like the cutscene when you land on ZDR, he does do exactly the same moves that he does in the fight at the end. And like when he does like the shockwave kind of thing, like Samus does duck in the scene. And so like if for some reason like you remembered that cutscene specifically, going into that fight, you can pick up on like most of the stuff you need to do to actually get through the fight, down to like the counter and the duck and
and they do that with like every boss. There's always like a little cutscene that is then kind of quietly showing you things that you can do in this fight. And it's just, I think the reason it's resonating, and it resonates with us and it resonates with a lot of people, is in a very similar way to like a From Software game, but a totally different approach. It is just trusting the player to understand. It is putting a lot of faith in the player to kind of pull their weight, and it's doing so in a way that I think is good. Like it is conveying it visually, clearly, I think, and it does it a lot with a lot of the different abilities you get. And I also appreciate just kind of thinking about that progression is everything, every ability in this game is relevant to progression in some way. Which is not always the case in Metroid games, especially like Other M comes to mind, you know. But like there's a scan ability that you get that you don't need that is kind of superfluous, but it is nice because that's what you need.
I liked it.
Yeah, it's great for collecting stuff and finding stuff at the end. But to go off of what you were saying a little bit earlier about the kind of obtuse, weird stuff hidden around and how that's kind of a big part of this game's history. I think a part of that, and playing this game really represented that, and it brought me back to the highlights of collecting everything in Metroid games for me, which was Zero Mission and Fusion on the GBA. This game is way more laser focused than a lot of other Metroidvanias, especially thinking of modern Metroidvanias that have really kind of sprung out into the RPG genre. This game, it doesn't have side quests, it doesn't have extra stuff, it doesn't have secret bosses, really. Some of the games have, but it's not about that. The secondary objective things that you can do if you want are these kind of ability-based challenges, and that is like the extra stuff in a Metroid game. And I forget how, like, when they're done well, they're just so fun. They're just so good and fun to do. I don't know if you went back and did any of these 100% collection stuff.
I at certain points in the game, I definitely felt like, oh, okay, I think I have like some of the abilities that I need to go back to areas. And I didn't 100% any single area, and I 100% the game, but I did like go back and explore a little bit. The thing was, and this is not a hot take, but this is just like
incoming.
So,
everybody prep yourself.
I kind of, if there was a single like big knock for me against Metroid Dread, it's that like the exploration was really like mechanical and boring.
What do you mean?
I completely understand that like the series' idea of like exploration is directly tied to like the power scope. Like get missile tanks, get energy tanks, get all that stuff. And I think I just work differently in that I really like exploring in my games just for like the novelty of it.
Yeah.
And like I hate throwing out like as like the thing that I love getting out of exploration. But like I am a person who like
You're
story resonates with me. Yeah. And so I didn't really expect it of Metroid Dread because I have watched enough Metroid to know that that is what it is with this series. But it was still a little disappointing at the end of the day that there wasn't more like that.
Sure.
And I just think that that's maybe
it's
an inalienable fact.
We gotta get you to play Metroid Prime as soon as possible, because like the thing with Metroid Prime is you can scan. You have a scanner visor, and you can just scan everything. And like there are, when you're in like the Space Pirate base, there are like red scannables, and that's like a lore entry, and there's like a whole list of lore entries of like journals from the Space Pirates. And then
that sounds like my shit.
There's ones like in the Chozo ruins, you can find lore entries for the Chozo and what happened to their civilization on this planet. And then you can just like scan like this casing that looks broken, and it's like it seems something broke out of here like 2 hours ago. And it's like the wounds here are still fresh, and it's like, oh yes, this is my And sometimes like Samus will kind of interject a little bit of her observations into those scan entries too. It's there is an outlet
how
for
do
that.
you how do you feel about like the I guess the absence of that in this game? Like, because you have played other Metroidvanias, like you have played and you love like Hollow Knight, which is really exploratory in the way that resonates with me, but
Mhm.
is not necessarily what's in this series which you love.
Yeah, I like that this game is such a mechanic driven game, and it's funny because this is Metroid 5, like this is posing itself as the follow up to Fusion. So I think if it broke away from some of these things, it would be a little weird.
Mhm.
Where it did make sense for like Metroid Other M has a little bit of what you're talking about. I know not a
Yeah.
good game, does some cool things, but it has a little bit more of that like go here and switch to first person mode, and maybe you can find some stuff out that you wouldn't have found out otherwise, and that is kind of its own reward and stuff. And that game also kind of doesn't have a lot of optional power ups. You know, it's much more streamlined in that regard. So I think for them to want to make this as the follow up to those games, I understand their urge to do it, and a lot of like maybe my forgiveness for it comes from there hasn't been a Metroid game for like over a decade, almost 2 decades.
That's fair.
So it's
That's
like
very fair.
there really isn't. It's funny playing this, like there isn't something like quite like this. Like even the Castlevania GBA games came out, and they are more like not like collective. There's not missile tanks in those games. You know, there's other stuff like health vials and health upgrades and whatnot, and cards to collect. But this game, it's like we're putting our stake on these cool challenges that just to get more power ups, to get stronger. And it does have like such a great curve as far as like becoming powerful, because there is definitely like way later into this game do you still feel like things will give you trouble. It really isn't until I think you get like the screw attack that it's like, okay, now I'm ready to kill everything in my way.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I like that. I appreciate that they make every power more relevant, so it does like every power will contribute to finding something in exploration, whether it's the way forward. It's, you know, kind of what we were talking about with the diffusion beam, how there are like these things halfway through walls that makes the diffusion beam actually relevant to progression and getting to certain powers and abilities. But none of them are like overutilized, because one of my criticisms with Samus Returns is every shortcut in that game is just a grapple beam block, basically. And it's just the whole game is that. Where this, they really do mix it up. It's like, okay, I can diffusion this, I can wave beam this, I can plasma beam this door, I can super seeker missile this door, I can,
Ice missile these fire pillar things.
yeah, I can speed booster through this area. And it felt really diverse. It felt like I was using way more of my utility than in any other Metroid game.
Speaking of speed boosters, just as a side note,
Mm-hmm.
I could never get the hang of the fucking
Shine Spark.
Shine Spark. Yeah, never
A
could.
trick with it is you can just go into Morph Ball and stop, and that'll bank it. If you're having trouble with the duck,
Yeah.
that will help. And then another thing that I learned playing it is when you bank your Shine Spark, to use it in midair more easily, you can jump and then hit both the jump and attack button at the same time, and you'll always spark out of the air in whatever direction you want.
Okay.
It's a little bit more consistent. But you know, like Shine Spark, and they lean into it. That ability is hidden in Super Metroid. Like you get the speed booster in Super Metroid, but at no point do you have to use the Shine Spark in that game. But you can do it. And there's like a little animal hidden somewhere in the world that like teaches you how to Shine Spark, so that maybe a little bit more of what you'd be looking for, like incorporating elements of the world.
Yeah.
So like they've played around with stuff before like that, and I think this was them really leaning into a more focused game that has way more diversity of utility, and because of that, it really clicked with me. And it's just like once you got everything in your kit and you know how to use it, you're just zooming through this whole game, and it's so fun.
Another question for you, just because again, Metroidvania novice here. I only have the one under my belt.
No, please.
So I really liked Hollow Knight as well, because not only did it let me explore, but like I really felt like when I was backtracking through it a lot, I was really learning like the ins and outs of these places, and they really became kind of distinct in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've never really been a fan of like Metroid's visuals. But did you feel like the laser focus structure and the visuals of this game made like its world kind of stand apart? Because I felt like a lot of it felt very samey.
It's part of it's what you're looking for, I think, to some extent, because like so the Chozo temple area was like
Mhm.
nothing we've ever seen in a Metroid game. So I was eating all that up. I loved it. I really like the opening area. But I feel like the kind of bottom three areas are very similar to one another, and you kind of go back and forth between them. So like the water area, for parts of it, there's like a whole industrial kind of under area of the water area that I really like. The opening area, which is just a cave, and then the lava area, which is just kind of a hot cave. But I really thought the later areas were super, super awesome. And like the kind of rainy surface area, which is more of a Chozo temple. The Chozo temple, the green forest was really, really great.
I liked Gavaren
Yeah.
a lot. Like, of all of them, I think it was my favorite.
And the even like the last area that you go to, just even though it's just kind of where the boss is, very cool, very very Metroid. Anytime there's something in the air, in the sky, it's very Metroid. I liked it a lot, especially because, this is really the first time I'm getting this kind of visual treatment in a Metroid game. So I was...
That is fair.
I was really, really enjoyed it. I know, like, it's funny thinking of, like, something like Fist, which is a recent Metroidvania, kind of comparable in visual style. Maybe that has more detail to it, but I think for the mesh between style and utility, this was really good, and it's one of those things like some other 3D Metroid games have solved this better. Like, just gonna point you to Metroid Prime 1 again. What is this? Because
I gotta play Metroid Prime.
You really
1.
gotta play Metroid Prime 1. There's no reality where I think you don't think it's awesome.
Somebody who listens to this, Wii U.
Send this man a Wii U. And I'll tell you now, like, Metroid Prime 2 is my favorite, because it's the dark horse answer. So just, if you are able to play the trilogy, just keep that in mind, because I feel like
I would play the trilogy.
If you like that moody stuff, I think you also would be with Prime 2.
I love moody stuff.
I know. It's Moises bait. Yeah, it's tough. Like, to be honest, like, this game fired on all cylinders for me. Like, this is
okay.
I've thought about it a lot. I've played it a few times. So I played it through the first time. I didn't mention, but I beat it in about 9.5 hours. And then I played through a second time on hard mode. I went back and I did 100%. That topped me out at about like 13 hours, doing all those challenges and whatnot. I went through and played on hard mode, and then I did a third time on hard mode, trying to beat it as fast as I can. 3 hours 55 minutes was the just under the wire for the last thing to unlock. So
because it gives you like
artwork,
gives you
for each
portraits
of,
of like the games,
which are very good. And that's a very classic Metroid reward, very Nintendo reward also, of like, here's a picture.
Hey, I mean, at least it's playing like the hits.
Yes,
they know their fan base.
And if you if you like unlock all the rewards, you get an extra one too on top of that, which is cool. And yeah, this is like, I know we're not like at the end here, but this is like a 10 for me, I think, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying like to hold myself to like this thing, because I know I love Metroid. It is really high up for me, but like thinking about what I want out of a 10 and what I want out of a follow-up to Metroid, like this, the biggest thing with 10s, like that it takes you over like an amazing game, like something that I would consider a masterpiece, is if it really surprises me. And I think everything that happens in the later half of the game, as far as like a certain enemy coming back from a previous game that I'm a big fan of, and whatnot, which might fall on deaf ears to someone who's kind of new to the franchise, but that like totally shook me to my core. Like, really didn't expect it. Really started paying homage to some like my favorite horror movies, and incorporated a lot of elements that I didn't know I would be really into as well, like the Chozo and kind of the relationship with Samus there. So it both surprised me and executed on something like really amazing, in my opinion.
What was the what was the enemy that came back that really surprised you?
The X parasite.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Because like functionally it works exactly how it did in Metroid Fusion. Like the whole like when you kill an enemy and there's an X left after it, like the fact that all the enemies in the game get infected, which happens in Metroid Fusion, it's extremely cool. And I've like that was my ride or die GBA game for a very long time. I played that game through many times, probably as many times as I played this. So it has a special place in my heart, even if it's maybe not my favorite Metroid game. So this like kind of taking that idea and I think exploring it more to its fullest, like the whole John Carpenter's The Thing style monsters like ripping themselves apart and turning, like that is what they kind of imagined could be possible with the X Parasite, and they never executed on it because it was a GBA game. There's some cool stuff in that game though, all things considered. And just like it goes so hard in the paint, and I was so into it, just absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I had no familiarity with like the X Parasite.
You didn't appreciate that 45-minute monologue at the beginning of the game.
I did like it just because it did catch me up on. So I knew very little about. I basically did not know the plot of the Metroid series at large, because speedruns ignore plot. So I had no idea even that in Metroid Fusion the big thing going on sync. Jesus Christ. I didn't know that the big thing like in Metroid Fusion, I think Metroid Fusion, right, is that the X Parasite attaches itself to Samus and like almost kills her, and so she gets injected with Metroid DNA.
She gets a Metroid vaccine. Pro vaccine Samus Aran. Shout out.
Yeah, if Samus isn't too cool for the Vax, by the way, you are not too cool.
You're not.
For the Vax. This is the PSA. Get a fucking Vax.
It's a Metroid cell, the last Metroid cell from the baby.
It's the baby that like imprinted itself on her
at the end of Metroid 2. So you can see like there is like truly a thread that ties this all together.
Except like to Prime, because Prime is its own thing.
Yeah, Prime all happened between Metroid Prime 1 and 2, so it's before all the good stuff starts happening.
Okay.
Or before stuff gets buck wild at least. And it's not like a complicated thread. You know, it's really just like one sentence kind of leads really into the next game. It's like Samus killed all the Metroids in Metroid 2 except for the last one because it was a baby. And she took the baby to his research center and Space Pirates stole it and she got it back, but it died. Sad.
It sacrificed itself for her.
She went back to the Metroid's homeworld, and now there's a new threat there that is deadly to her, and so she got infused with a Metroid cell. Metroid Fusion. And yeah, it's right there. They got you, dude. And now she is like the only, in theory, the last thing with Metroid cells. Although, you know, there's a whole thing in Metroid Fusion where the government is making Metroid clones, but we don't need to get into that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Was that
you blow them all up?
Okay.
Which again, great. The most like mic drop thing Samus could possibly do is like, I'm gonna actually drop these into a planet and blow the planet up. She blows a lot of planets up.
I was gonna say, I feel like she's frequently running exploding planets.
She has destroyed more planets than the Death Star.
She really does seem like the greatest threat to the galaxy.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a small thread that kind of leads it, but it is compelling enough that you understand, like, oh, yeah, this lady's been at it for a while, and she's been through a lot, and she's changed a lot. So that's when we get, and from here on out, we are going to be getting more in-depth into the plot for folks listening that kind of want to piece out. We're not already out from before. But you know, that's where it kind of leads with her being more Metroid-like, and then kind of leading through the end of this game. I really like that they followed up on that. You know, I feel weird. You know, it's fine how they ended it, very sudden. But I think that they have like really strung together a cool little sci-fi story that has like a little bit of Alien in it, has a little bit of its own kind of original taste in it, And it doesn't like hinge on the story is the thing. Like it is very hands off. It tells you enough. It
Yeah.
does walk the line very well.
Yeah, that's definitely. I noticed that like this seemed like a more plot driven Metroid than previously. Like there's seemingly a lot of cutscenes. Maybe not compared to like I know other M really gets into story
Yeah,
stuff. But like for like a
boy.
2D Metroid, it's this one definitely does seem like really plot heavy, and it has characters, you know, and they're sort of there, and you get
But not a
like
lot, you know.
inklings of their motivations. Yeah, like Quiet Robe is in there for a little bit, and I guess the Chozos are alive, but I know that the Chozos were supposed to be like dead, and
I
now
like it.
there's two Chozo tribes instead of just one species.
Yeah,
It's interesting, but it's not overbearing. Like it doesn't beat you over the head with anything it presents.
yeah. There's not like a lot you need to catch up on here. It's like yeah, there's different kinds of Chozo. You know, it's like all right, yeah, that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
cool that we're talking about that now. And you know, the Chozo kind of disappeared is as far as Samus knows, right? She lived with them as a youth. She was raised by them on Zebes, where Super Metroid takes place. Goes joins the Federation, leaves them because they're lamos, and then during that time period, they just kind of disappeared. This kind of implies that maybe Ravenbeak was bringing them all together here, and they were like killed by the X, which is like a way more, you know, it doesn't commit to that, so it's okay if that's not entirely true. But it is like a really, that's how like Metroid's most interesting threads typically work. Is like that does kind of line up, and context leads you to believe that in a really interesting way. Just like the Chozo had made the Metroids was like a thing that was very implied throughout every Metroid game, because it's like they were the dudes here. Where did the Metroids come from? And you know, they didn't feel the need to beat you over the head with that information. But they laid the breadcrumbs for you to kind of put the pieces together.
Yeah.
And this is like the most heavy-handed story in a 2D Metroid game, but I would compare its like it has as much dialogue in it as like Metroid Prime 2. You know.
Okay.
Which is not much.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the story, what did you think of the ending as like a longtime fan who's been waiting for like those narrative threads to like kind of pay off?
I really had no expectation. Like, I was more invested in this story that they were setting up of like the X, of like their problem, and like the whole thing with the end of Fusion was like Samus like endangered herself in order to take care of them, because that's how dangerous they were. Like they had taken her power suit and were cloning from her power suit. There was like 13 Samus clones walking around. And I do like that it kind of,
I love the idea of an Organization 13
of Samus's.
Samus fucking clones.
Yeah. That's a fucking nightmare, dude. Like no planet is safe from that. And they, I like that they kind of bring it full circle with Ravenbeak. Like now I'm going to clone the most powerful Metroid, which is you. And it's kind of Samus becoming her own project of self-destruction, which is cool, and I think it's a powerful metaphor. And that she overcomes it, convenient or not. It just kind of works out in the end. But you know,
literally plot armor.
Yeah,
it's literally plot armor.
She's got plot armor, and she wears it around like a fashionista. But
it looks fucking cool.
Yeah,
we haven't like said it.
The Metroid suit.
Yeah, the Metroid suit at the end where she goes full fucking Metroid. The most incredible thing.
Yeah, it's
ever.
awesome.
I wasn't expecting anything of that final encounter, except like I kind of picked up on that Adam was weird, and so like by the end I was just kind of like literally just before Adam like dissipates and it's fucking Ravensbeak, which a great scene by the way. I was just like, you're not Adam. Like you're definitely not Adam.
You're not the same robot, I believe.
yeah, no, you're negging too much. And then yeah, I again, I know so little about Metroid that just every twist kind of came at me at the end like tenfold.
Yeah.
Like I thought that she didn't have parents and that nobody really. I didn't
She
know
so
that Chozo raised her, so like I wasn't expecting Ravensbeak to suddenly pull a fucking Darth Vader and be her father.
and like
I
he's not like her dad. I think he just refers to his daughter as like, you're part of my tribe. You know, you're one of
yeah
us.
yeah
Because like she was raised by a character who has a name. It's not
Mhm.
quite Rope, but it is someone. There's a comic book about it. Yeah,
so this comic.
she like the weird thing is like only in that comic is it relevant that Samus has like a little bit of Chozo DNA in her arm that lets her use the power suit. Like that's what she needs, that to use the power suit. She doesn't have like a Chozo arm. It's just like DNA kind of melded with hers.
Yeah.
And it's like I appreciated that they were pulling from all corners here. Truly, everything is relevant. It tickled my Kingdom Hearts bone. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, no, it really seemed to be. I mean, I don't know any of it outside of what I've read up on it, but it did seem like an appropriate kind of end to whatever story they were telling, because it seems like from here on out it's gonna move. I don't know in a drastically different direction, but like it
They're kind of free to
it
do what they
seems.
want now.
Yeah, like they've kind of untethered themselves from like Metroid's past, and
It's
its success now definitely means that like it will probably be a big thing in the future. So I think from here it goes bigger and bolder, and I don't really know what that is. Like I do like Samus becoming the Metroid in the title of her series.
Yeah,
That is a very cool thing
it
to
is
me.
very cool. It's like
Yeah.
it is a good pigeonhole and like not pigeonhole bookend. Wrong turn of phrase. Too many idioms. And it's cool because like thinking about it, this fits our mutual friend Roger Picorni did a video once on something called the delayed sequel, and we've seen that kind of approach like the Force Awakens and Gears of War and stuff like, and all of those things are setting up for like a trilogy or a narrative or a new narrative, and this is instead coming in and closing the book and doing it well and like respecting what it means to be an ending and to have finality and to like no, like the story isn't over, like we can still go have fun and be a space bounty hunter and whatnot, but like this story deserves to have like some closure, and I think they wrapped it up well.
Yeah.
How'd you feel about Samus going ham on that dude?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I was scared because I thought that it was gonna throw a fourth phase at me
Yeah.
at the very end. I struggled enough getting through that third phase without your help. And yeah, so I was really scared as soon as he fucking became a Megazord or whatever. But yeah, no, it was great. I had never done one of those escape sequences either, so it was like I literally made it out with like 5 seconds.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I really should have known by now. Like, oh yeah, this is how these games end. But we get to it again. You have the Ultra Beam or Mega Beam or whatever, and it's like, this feels right. This is how this should end.
I do appreciate, and you can clarify which one of the games it might be, but I think it's one of the GBA Metroid games where like specifically I think at the end you need to blow like the bridge, I think, to get out.
There is a part where you have to blow the bridge, but you don't have to do it to get out.
Okay. Because I remember like at the end of this one, you do actually have to blow the bridge to get out, and I thought that was a nice callback to like how you had to do that. And I think Fusion.
It's definitely like the bridge that you blow open is definitely like a callback to both Metroid 1 and Super Metroid in particular.
Did you catch a lot of callbacks?
Yes.
To like what's in the game?
Like I mean the Emmys, which is funny we haven't talked about the Emmys at all.
Yeah. I think honestly like 20 minutes ago I was like, we haven't said Emmy once.
Which are great. They're great, awesome. I'm impressed at how well they made those things tense throughout by giving them just supplementally more annoying powers.
Yeah,
the hyperspeed
the
one will
freeze.
never freak me the fuck out. Like anything else will never freak me out as much as that though.
Yeah, the freeze one kept screwing me over.
Yeah.
I think the most.
The one that
they're
could
great.
see really far was the one that got me the most.
Yeah, yeah. They are progressively like interesting challenges as well as like just exercises in terror,
Yeah.
which is good.
Successfully created Dread, yes.
They're like based off the SAX.
Yes, they're
Right?
very much reminiscent of the SAX encounters from Metroid Fusion. But like those were so short, and really like there's only one, maybe two times like she chases you, and it is fucking terrifying, to be fair, because she's got like the ice beam and stuff. She's trying to freeze you, and she's you. And so like those definitely felt referential, but then they like just evolve on it so much. And the very end where the morph ball bomb gets you is like something that happens with SAX, which is very, very cool.
Okay.
Where she like drops in on you with a morph ball bomb, a power bomb, and it's like, oh fuck. But I like that, and I like that you never had to deal with that one because they built the narrative up to kind of pay off in that moment. Kraid, obviously, but also you can there's a secret in that fight. One of the many secrets in that fight, is many people have figured out, where you can, as he shoots his little belly button rockets that stick in the wall, you can jump up them as he's shooting them. Not when he does like all three at once, that lowers the metallic grate. You can actually jump up and get to that metallic grate as he's shooting them if you're fast enough, which is like Super Metroid. There were probably a few other I just can't name off the top of my head, but definitely like that when you get to the surface and that bridge is there, and it's like, oh, I could probably powerbomb this. That's like every 2D Metroid game has to have you powerbomb. Even Metroid Prime has you do that at some point. So the very like common trope that I really like is blowing up bridges.
I do appreciate that, like, it not so much like honors its history, but like is just, I guess, proud of it.
Yeah. And evolves on it. I think everything that Metroid Dread is doing, ability wise and kit wise and utility wise, is not just paying homage to those pieces of level design, but also like really building on it and making engaging with them fun and interesting in a way that I didn't know a 2D Metroid game could be.
So what's the next Metroid then, Al?
I mean, Metroid Prime 4, very excited. I really think that's just going to be like Metroid Prime subtitle. Like, it's not going to have anything to do with the other Metroid Prime games, which is fine. Just another 3D Metroid. And then, like, a couple of ideas I've thrown out as like multiple planets would be cool. I would really like them to kind of stay away from space stations because they've done a lot of that. And I feel like those just tend to be less interesting places to go and explore.
Do you want Ridley back?
I'd be down for Ridley. Like, I'm always down for Ridley. I think, like, as long as, just like in this game, they evolve on the mechanics and make it an interesting and satisfying fight, like, it'll be super rad. And I'd say, like, from here out, we probably are lucky because we get to live in a world where we get both 2D and 3D Metroid games.
Hell yeah, brother.
Which is, what a spoil of riches. The last thing I'd say, just for Metroid Dread, to bookend it, it's just I think this is probably like the best movement in a game I've played in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really capture how well it feels to move in the game. I was surprised because the most Metroid I had played was like Super Metroid, which feels fine, but like is still
slow,
stilted. Yeah, it's slow. Metroid like Return of Samus looked slower, and that might just have to do with like the hardware it was on as well. This game runs smooth as hell. I loved every minute of moving in this game.
Yeah,
and especially like you noted, as like the power scope like increases, like once you get the screw attack, you're kind of just jumping everywhere, and it's you don't really need to be on the ground all that much, and like it could just be like tech, and it feels incredible.
Yeah, just the sliding into a morph ball and then just seamlessly transitioning right out of the morph ball to full sprint is incredible. Every video game should just let you do that.
Yeah.
I don't even if it's Sly Cooper, you should be able to morph ball into full sprint.
It also the movement like feels good. It also just like looks really good because the animations in this game are also
top-notch.
incredible. Love like the characterization that's done in Samus just like sauntering like off to the side, charging her beam facing down. Like she so frequently is just charging like her beam.
Yeah, she's ready for anything.
Absolutely fuck like these dudes completely up. It is incredible.
It's funny too because like when I'm playing the game, I'm like always charging a beam. I'm always like, I got it ready.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I really was like, yes, you and me, girl, we get it. Yeah, it's very cool. And you know, like one of the few characterizations of Samus that I've called out many times is like why I love her character, how she like speaks through body language so much louder than with any words. And it's okay that she doesn't like to talk. It's fine. Like I get it. The big mood.
She does speak in like Chozo though, right?
Yeah,
in this game,
which is like
Quiet Road.
One of 2 times she's ever spoken.
That's
which again, wow. It is such a stone cold badass moment that is like, of course this intelligent woman speaks multiple languages. It's just like, not? Yeah, of course. Yeah, like this is just so cool. Like that moment was such a great surprise as well. Like that, one of those things that kind of pushes it above and beyond for me. Of just like Samus just being like, I'm gonna kill his ass in Chozo, basically. But at the end of Metroid Prime 2, and it's not really a spoiler, but like, you know, you meet some people there and help them at the end of it, and like the only thing Samus does at the end is she like gently like lifts her hand up and like waves goodbye like with 2 fingers very casually and then walks away. And it's like the only thing communication wise she does or says, and it's like, what a fucking badass. And this feels very true to that character, that version of the character that I really really like.
How did you feel about the characterization then compared to like I know Other M is the controversial one in this sense.
Other M just like, again, the kernels of ideas, like trying to give her some kind of meaningful character to have a relationship with, but like that doesn't have to be a significant relationship with a character like this. And they are like, yep, she sees Adam, this other Adam. Don't worry about it. Don't
the commanding officer Adam,
the man Adam.
The
she
one
sees him as
lady.
a father figure, you know, of course. But like, you know, literally the cutscene where they establish this, she says, "Confession time. I saw Adam as a father." Like that's the line of dialogue in the game.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And anytime confession time is written into your script, you have fucked up. And it's a lot of that, but like they also try and give her like PTSD with dealing with Kraid and everything that happened to Super Metroid and losing the baby, but like they don't establish that. They don't, like, just suddenly she's fine throughout all of this, and then she sees Kraid and has a panic attack and starts losing control of her power suit, like stuff like that. It's like, why are you like, I understand wanting to make a powerful character seem weak in order to have them overcome difficult triumphs, but like a game like Metroid Prime 3 does that much better, where like throughout the whole game you're being corrupted by this like radioactive material, and the first time it like gets to you, Samus just like leans over, rips off her helmet, and vomits up like radioactive material, and then she like takes a minute, puts her helmet back on, gets up and keeps walking. It's like, that is way better, more subtle characterization of like she's going through a very difficult time, but she's just doing what she does and powering through. Like it is so. Other M has the additional misfortune of, you know, being a poorly written story, but is contrasted against very good uses of minimal characterization for this like relatively silent protagonist.
Okay.
And Dread, I think Dread gets it, you know.
Yeah. I was just curious because I've also heard a lot of talk about how Dread specifically feels like a really pointed response to all of the characterization misfires, if like that's how you feel about.
Yeah, I think like I would say it does feel like a bit of a pointed response, but it also really does feel like it is pulling from
Yeah, like I just know her as like kind of the bounty hunter badass.
Sorry, there was a little internet hiccup there. I
There
lost you.
there was a little hitch there. Yeah, yeah. No, you're good. You're good.
I'd say to Dread's credit, it doesn't necessarily feel responsive because it does also feel like it is pulling from source material of some of the other games that I think have done it the best and that have resonated with a lot more people.
Okay.
You know, I really do like the impression of Sam is out there on her own, but you know, you're not worried about her. Like you're just excited to be along for the ride. She can take care of herself, and like that faith in that character is like there's not a lot of completely alone female characters in video games, and that's a shame.
Yeah.
And Samus stands out.
No, I'd never really thought about it like.
Yeah, like even Lara Croft's got fucking what's his face to bounce off of in her modern game, Jonah.
Yeah, I guess that guy exists. Yeah, I played the first one.
Samus has no one. She's a robot in her ship. She doesn't give a shit what he thinks.
Yeah. And she always, I mean, she's the last person alive at the end of because she blew the planet she goes to.
Yeah, she's got to finish business. Yeah. Well, she's being followed by terrible bioweapons and horrifying space diseases.
To be fair, in this one, she does go to.
Yeah,
she's not being followed by.
She was baited into going to that planet.
She was so fucking baited.
They knew what they were asking for.
I would have seen that X-Parasite clip, and I would have been like, "Good day to that X-Parasite."
Like, I'm walking in a trap. I don't care. I can take care of myself.
Yeah, no, she clearly doesn't give a fuck. She doesn't like she only emotes like in that first fight with Ravensbeak when he triggers something. I don't know exactly what it is that he triggers, but like her eyes like
I think
flash specifically.
I think it's implied he's like awakening the Metroid DNA in her with like this very intense situation.
Yeah. But other than that, yeah, no, she just kind of wakes up and is just like, yeah, I have physical amnesia. Let's go.
I've lost my powers again. I've been here before. I can handle this. Any last closing thoughts here, Moises?
Sounds
like you enjoyed it overall.
Oh no, yeah, Metroid Dread is great. I as my first Metroid game that I ever played and beat, it is a wonderful game. I think that it fell short for me just in the ways that like my impressions of the genre, like the impressions that the genre at large has kind of given me since Metroid has like gone quiet. But I really loved it. I'm going to go back and play the Metroid games.
Hell yeah. Time to play some more.
Specifically, it sounds like I should play Metroid Prime. Which I want to. So I'll see if I can get my hands on that in any easy way. I know a lot of people were up in arms about Metroid emulation the other week, but it feels like the only way to get my hands on like some of the older ones. So
yeah, it's a tricky thing with their old games, but I'd also say like if you can try out those Metroid Prime games.
I will absolutely try to get the Metroid.
If you like just like scanning stuff and finding out more about everything that you're looking at, which I do, as it turns out.
I love it. No, it's my favorite thing to do.
It's great. I just love that you can just scan everything. Like a corpse of a dead guy, like an enemy, to answer your monster log and stuff. Perfect. For my final thoughts, I obviously think very highly of it. For me, this is... I don't want to say it's like the culmination of the Metroid games, because I don't think you can culminate on something that hasn't had a new entry in 17 years or whatever. But I think this is like a wonderful return to form, love letter, and evolution all at the same time. And to do that is such a feat that I'm quite impressed, especially as such a long-term fan and a fan of all the different shapes and sizes that Metroid has taken, like from Prime to Super to Fusion, even Other M to some extent, and Samus Returns. So like kind of all these little bits of it coming together in this game to be like one of the best playing video games I've ever played in my life. It's a great video game. $60, it's worth it. Thumbs up.
Pick it up.
Just for folks out there at home, Moises, where can folks follow you, find out more of what you're doing?
You can find me on Twitter at Platano Ranger. Platano Ranger.
Ranger.
Yeah, you can see my work at whatever site pays me to write for them at the time.
The Platinum Ranger. That's what you are,
yeah,
right?
The Platinum Ranger. Yeah.
Platano Ranger. Yeah, check out you were on Waypoint Podcast. Go listen to that. You were on the Life is Strange, True Colors spoiler cast with mutual friend. Was that for Waypoint or?
Yeah, that was for Waypoint.
I didn't know if that was for Waypoint or Fanbyte.
Yeah. No, Natalie has just been on all of the
Life is
Strange spoiler casts.
Yeah, she's got a brand and she's repping it. I very much respect it.
I love that for her.
Yeah. And Life is Strange is great. I have to finish True Colors, but yeah. Thanks for joining me, Moises. You're the best. I love talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you again.
You can follow me at Alfighter27, all the usual spots. Right now, a lot of stuff is in flux, but streams all this month in October, we're donating to Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So go check out all of our Wednesday group streams on Sunday, which would be like October 24th, I think. I don't know if this will be out before then, but I'm doing a full playthrough House of Ashes stream with Jacob Bryant. And it's going to be super spooky, and we're going to raise money for charity, and it'll be fun. So hang out, but that's really it. Check out the other review discussions. We got one for Deathloop. We've got, I forgot the other one, but we've also got New Nintendo Land and a bunch of other Metroid conversations happening. So thanks for joining me, Moises. Thanks for watching, everybody. We love you. Bye.
Bye.